Good afternoon and welcome to today's New Year Council hearing on women and gender equity, jointly with COVID recovery and resiliency. If you wish to submit testimony, you may at testimony@council.nyc.gov. At this time, please silence all electronic devices and thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Can I just start with my opening? Yeah. Okay. My name is Tiffany Caban. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the chair of the Committee on Women and Gender Equity. I would like to give an opening statement, and then I'll hand it over to our co-chair today. The president has declared the pandemic over. The governor's public health policy is you do you. But for millions of our people, especially women, COVID continues to represent an urgent threat of death, disability, illness, and suffering. Yesterday alone, COVID claimed the lives of at least 916 Americans. And if we were to do a minute of silence for each of them, this hearing wouldn't be able to start until around 5 in the morning. We lose about a 9/11's worth of Americans every week to COVID, with this year's excess death rate on track to match last year's. And the thing is, the death rate isn't the only danger COVID poses. Today, we're here to talk about the facet of this viral disease that is just as horrific, long COVID. It afflicts the young or old alike, the sick and healthy alike, the vaccinated and unvaccinated alike, and symptoms can last years. There is no known cure for it, and as Time magazine put it this week, quote, "The only way to prevent it is to not get infected at all." And with new, highly diverged variants poised for immune escape popping up all the time, our vaccine response is likely to continue struggling to catch up indefinitely. We'll be particularly looking at its gendered impacts, but suffice it to say, long COVID is a pandemic unto itself. Public health scholars vary on how many COVID survivors are plagued by ongoing symptoms. Some estimates put the figure as high as 1 out of every 3. But even if only 5% were afflicted, that would total 7.5 million Americans. 7.5 million. And for context, approximately 1.8 million Americans are diagnosed with cancer every year, 1.5 million with diabetes. And Harvard economist David Cutler estimates that as many as 3.5 million American workers are out of work due to long COVID, costing our economy $3.7 trillion total. As for the gendered impacts, according to the World Health Organization, women are twice as likely as men to experience long COVID. And why is it so much more likely in women? Is it because women bear a disproportionate amount of the childcare, housework, and social reproduction burdens, and therefore cannot get the clinical rest necessary to fully recover? Are there immunological differences linked to sex or the social determinant of gender? Are there other possible explanations we are currently unaware of? And today we hope to find out what we know, what we suspect, and what we need more research on. But what is clear, however, is that greatly more women than men continue to experience symptoms well after they stop testing positive for COVID. And what are those symptoms? It's basically everything. Long COVID can affect your heart. A study this month in an international journal, Nature Journal, found that 73% of COVID survivors had cardiac signs and symptoms more than 3 months after infection, and 57% still had them at nearly 1 year. Long COVID can affect your brain. Study of more than 6 million patients 65 and older, published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, found that the risk for developing Alzheimer's increased by 50 to 80% in older adults who caught COVID-19 within a year. The CDC has found that long COVID can increase your risk of strokes, neuropathy, asthma, diabetes, pulmonary embolism, and other thrombotic disorders, and the list goes on and on. Quiet as it's kept, this is indisputably a mass disabling event and possibly the longest one in history. So again, a reminder that every terrible aspect of long COVID is twice as prevalent in women. And that's one of the main reasons our elected leaders, prominent medical personalities, and corporate media rarely ever mention long COVID. The members of this committee are intimately familiar with how often women are dismissed by doctors, told that their symptoms are all in their head, and made to question their sanity. And once upon a time, they'd proclaim a diagnosis of hysteria. And now they use more polite words, but it all adds up to the same thing. If women suffer more, it's easier to ignore. But there's another related factor at play here. Why, given the scope and depth of the threat, are our elected leaders shredding every last public health protection we ever put in place? And the reason is simple. They're doing the bidding of the corporate ownership class, overwhelmingly men, whose windfall profits depend on forcing working people, predominantly women, to commute and work in dangerous conditions, and it's a choice to prioritize profits over people, period. If we care about New Yorkers, if we care about the disability community, if we care about women and our transgender, gender fluid, non-binary, and gender non-conforming neighbors, friends, and family, we will treat this topic with much more seriousness and compassion than the billionaire folks running our city, running our country, and running our loved ones into the ground. And so I want to thank everyone here for joining us today for this hearing. And with that, I'll pass it to Councilmember Moya for his opening remarks.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Caban. I'm Councilmember Francisco Moya. I am the chair of the subcommittee on COVID recovery and resiliency. I'd like to thank my co-chair and my colleagues for being present here today for this important discussion. Since the city's first confirmed case of COVID-19 in February 2020, the number of New York City residents that have been infected total almost 3 million. There is no denying that the pandemic has had a profound effect on each and every one of us. While there is still much to learn about the effects of the virus, we do know that its impact can last long after a person's recovery from the infection. According to the CDC, 1 in 13 adults in the United States currently experience long COVID symptoms, which is defined as symptoms lasting 3 or more months from the virus, from after the virus is first contracted. This past June, the COVID subcommittee held a joint hearing with the Committee on Hospitals on long-term COVID treatment in New York City hospitals. Today, we are here to address what is now referred to as long COVID syndrome. While millions of dollars are currently being spent to study this in general, research has found that women are significantly more likely than men to develop the symptoms associated with long COVID. A March 2022 study published in the Journal for Women's Health found that a larger portion of women who had COVID had lingering symptoms compared to men for an average of 5 months after initial infection. Women are significantly more likely to report persistent weakness, altered smell and taste, and shortness of breath, palpitations, and muscle pain. Experts say that this difference in symptoms may be because women in general have stronger immune systems. The desperate response may occur because the woman's immune system react more robustly and rapidly, which can protect from an initial severe infection, but can render women more vulnerable to prolonged autoimmune-related diseases. These are some of the explanations we are hoping to explore in more detail with the experts on long COVID who have kindly joined us for today's hearing. As the rest of the world moves on, and we must continue to focus on and take seriously the long-term effects that this virus has had on the health of New Yorkers, especially those without social safety nets. Preliminary data shows that the negative impact of long-term COVID extends far beyond health. It impacts a person's ability to work and maintain social relationships. The city and the country as a whole must be vigilant in identifying the gender impacts on long COVID, and to consider the ways in which women, transgender, gender-conforming individuals are uniquely affected by this virus. Women are the backbone of our society and are suffering, and we cannot ignore their cries for help. I want to thank the administration for being here today, and I look forward to our discussion on this important issue. Again, I want to thank Chair Caban once again, as well as the Subcommittee on COVID Recovery and Resiliency, and I want to thank my committee staff for their work on this issue, Harbani, Sarah, and also Manur, as well as my Chief of Staff, Megan Taddeo, and Phoebe Solano. I now turn this back to our Chair, Caban.
Thank you. And with that, I'd also like to thank my staff for their hard work. Stephanie Solkowski, my Chief of Staff, Madhuri Shukla, Legislative Director, and Jesse Meyerson, Communications Director, as well as the committee staff for their work on this hearing. Brenda McKinney, Senior Committee Counsel, Anastasia Zamina, Legislative Policy Analyst. And before we move to Dr. Levine, who will testify before the administration today, I want to welcome the students who are here today and also recognize my colleagues present for the record. Council members Narcisse, Riley, Brooks Powers, Rivera, and Stevens. And Gennaro, who is with us virtually. I hope you're feeling better.
Long COVID is a pain in the ass, and that's what I have.
Dr. Levine is having technical difficulties, so we'll give her 1 minute. Okay, and we're just going to wait about 1 minute. Dr. Levine is currently trying to get onto the Zoom. I appreciate folks' patience. Thank you. Okay, I think she's on. Nope.
Can you remind witnesses that are here to testify orally or in person that they should fill out a witness slip with the sergeant?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for anybody in person.
If for anyone in person, that they should fill out a witness slip, just speak to the sergeant.
And if there's anybody here that wants to testify today, just make sure that you speak to the sergeant and fill out one of the little testify slips. Thank you.
She can't get in. She's asking to dial by phone. So the gentleman in red also has her testimony and can read it for the record. Yeah.
So if you are in person and you registered to sign in online, to testify, you also have to sign in at the desk.
And I just like to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Brewer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We're experiencing a technical difficulty, and the witness is trying to log in, so it should just be 1 minute. Thank you for your patience. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for your patience. This is the hearing on the gendered impact of long COVID with the Committee on Women and Gender Equity and Subcommittee on COVID. We will wait one more minute to try to facilitate these issues. We've been working behind the scenes on them, and then move on if we can't do that. So thank you very much. We appreciate your patience.
Yeah. All right, thank you. We're going to move to admin testimony.
Thank you, admin, for being here. Will you please raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
I do.
You may begin.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chairs Caban and Moya, and members of the Women and Gender Equity Committee and Subcommittee on COVID-19 Recovery and Resiliency. I'm Dr. Celia Quinn, the Deputy Commissioner of Disease Control at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. I'm joined today by my colleague from Health and Hospitals, Dr. Ted Long, who is the Senior Vice President for Ambulatory Care and the Executive Director of New York City Test and Treat. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today to provide information on what is currently known about the long-term effects of COVID-19, often called long COVID. Scientists and clinicians are still learning about long COVID. Generally, long COVID refers to a wide range of new, returning, or ongoing health problems that people may experience after being infected with the virus that causes COVID-19. Although most people who have COVID-19 get better within a few days of infection, some experience prolonged symptoms. Anyone who has had a COVID-19 infection can experience long COVID. A variety of symptoms impacting different body systems, such as cognitive, respiratory, circulatory, neurological, and digestive systems, have been reported. It is likely that different pathological processes are contributing to the symptoms that are associated with long COVID. Long COVID is therefore not a single disease entity or process, but likely reflects multiple ways that the virus can cause prolonged health problems in some people. There's no singular test to diagnose long COVID, and symptoms can also be caused by other health problems. For these and many other reasons, it can be difficult for people to get an accurate and timely diagnosis. As public health experts, we want to prevent as many people as possible from getting sick. To that end, I'll take a moment to speak about important preventive measures that everyone can take to reduce the risk of contracting and transmitting COVID-19, and thus dealing with potential long-term effects of the virus. It continues to be critical for New Yorkers to stay up to date with their vaccinations, including getting the new bivalent COVID-19 booster this fall. Vaccines help you avoid getting severely ill or being hospitalized. Anyone can go to New York City Vaccine Finder to find a place to get a free vaccine close to them. I'm still recommending that people wear a high-quality mask in public indoor settings. Further, utilize COVID-19 testing, which is now widely available. Get tested, especially if you don't feel well, before and after travel or attending large gatherings, and get tested prior to visiting with someone who is at higher risk of poor health outcomes, like older adults. And if you test positive, make sure to contact your healthcare provider to discuss treatment options. As always, if someone does not have access to a provider, they can call 311 to get connected to care. Like I mentioned, staying up to date on vaccines is very important. Not only do vaccines reduce the likelihood of getting severely ill from COVID-19, but several studies have found that vaccination reduces the risk of developing long COVID by 15 to 60%. It has also been found that more vaccine doses per individual may reduce the likelihood of developing long COVID, further highlighting the importance of being up to date with booster recommendations. The health department is also monitoring ongoing studies that are looking to see if COVID-19 treatments, like Paxlovid, ease long COVID symptoms, although these studies are still too new to have conclusive answers. Currently, we do have some local data on long COVID. Data collected from the health department's population-based community health survey conducted in 2021 suggests that up to 30% of New York City adults who have had COVID-19 may experience some form of long COVID. This survey also found that approximately 28% of females with a likely past COVID-19 infection reported having at least one long-term physical or long-term emotional or mental health issue, some having had both, that they thought was due to COVID-19, compared to approximately 20% of males. We are working to enhance this survey and to broaden our understanding of long COVID by refining the questions regarding symptoms, looking at the impact long COVID has on participants' lives, and assessing their access to care. As noted above, the long-term effects of COVID-19 can manifest as a broad range of symptoms and may be due to other health problems. This survey over time will help us characterize long COVID and ensure any lessons are incorporated into public health practice. That being said, due to the many complexities to consider, it is very challenging to study long COVID and to create surveillance systems that account for all of the relevant factors. The health department also reviews studies on long COVID, including those that are looking at any differences between sexes on the impact of long COVID, which has been reported in the news media and is the focus of this hearing. At this time, it is not yet known how much of the disparate impact is a biological difference or if it is related to various detection biases. For example, females may engage more with the healthcare system and/or they may report the condition and symptoms more often than males. However, a UK study found that females were more likely to have one or more persistent symptoms at 12 weeks after their initial illness when compared to males. Another study published in the European Respiratory Journal suggested that a higher prevalence of long COVID in females could be due to higher prevalence of autoimmune diseases, for example, prevalence of postural tachycardia syndrome, PTS, or chronic fatigue syndrome in females, which are conditions that can also be associated with long COVID. There is still a lot that we do not know about long COVID, and we're still learning about the virus that causes COVID-19 itself. However, it's crucially important that we ensure New Yorkers know about the possibility of developing long COVID, that they understand the importance of avoiding COVID-19 infection in the first place, and are able to access clinical services for any symptoms that are interfering with their daily lives. On the health department's website, we have general information on long COVID, as well as a non-exhaustive list of post-COVID care clinics for patients experiencing continuing health issues after contracting COVID-19. Part of the intent of this list is for providers to help appropriately refer patients who require specialized care. As I've mentioned, without a diagnosis, which can be difficult to obtain, getting appropriate care and support is challenging. And that's why much of our educational efforts have been focused on healthcare providers. In June, the health department and health and hospitals co-hosted a long COVID symposium to help providers recognize possible occurrences of long COVID amongst patients that they are treating. The health department has also sent out communications to providers with educational resources for clinical care, information on symptoms, and patient support resources. For the public, we have run TV commercials and radio ads with health department doctors to increase the awareness of long COVID symptoms. We have also been educating our public health corps partners to increase community awareness and promote care seeking for those living with long COVID. There is always more to do. We welcome the opportunity to hear your suggestions and questions. We rely on your partnership as you have your ear on the ground and interact with your communities daily. I'm happy to have Dr. Ted Long here with me today. H&H has been at the forefront of offering comprehensive clinical services to meet the needs of patients who are navigating long COVID, including 3 COVID-19 centers of excellence and through the launch of Test and Treat's Aftercare. We're happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. So I think I want to start with following up on some of your testimony where you lay out that there have been educational efforts as well as different kinds of communications using different kinds of mediums, and would like to dig in on both of those pieces a little bit. What are your existing programs on long COVID, and what are the existing programs like across New York City, and what are the current and long-term plans to help the growing number of people with long COVID?
Thank you. So the health department's efforts, especially with our public health corps and community-based organizations that we work with and our public communication, it's really about raising awareness so that people who are experiencing symptoms after COVID know that they should be seeking care and that care is available for them. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Long to talk a bit about the specific clinical services that H&H is offering.
And to add to that question, to get more into specifics, just also what kinds of resources are being put into this, like a dollar number, right? Because we said we're doing education, but if we're not doing it at a scale where we're reaching enough people, like that's a question for concern as well.
Yeah, so I just want to start by saying thank you for having us today, and thank you for bringing up this extremely important topic. I'm a primary care doctor in the Bronx, where I'll be practicing tomorrow, and too many of my patients today have long COVID. So for me, this is a personal, very important issue that we need to address immediately as a cornerstone of our city's recovery. So I want to talk about 2 programs that we have that address long COVID. The first is our Aftercare program, which is a city program, and the second is our COVID Centers of Excellence, which are something that we early on knew would be important and we uniquely created in New York City. For Aftercare, in terms of some of the numbers, so Aftercare is a program that we created a while back when we were learning about long COVID, knowing that this would be a very important thing to help our city, where we proactively were going to reach out to people that had had COVID before, see who was still potentially suffering from symptoms related to COVID or who could have long COVID, and bring them in for whatever it is that they would need. Since then, the program has evolved so you can actually call 212 COVID-19 and speak with one of our navigators with a direct connection there. But what our navigators, whether we're reaching out to you, whether you're calling us, will do is we'll talk to you about what's going on with you. For a lot of people, actually the number one thing people need is a referral for medical care at one of our COVID Centers of Excellence. The reason that's important is for my patients I see in the Bronx every Friday that have long COVID, I do my best to take good care of them. I care about them, but I worry about people that don't have me as their doctor. What about all the New Yorkers that are suffering in silence because they don't know how to engage with the healthcare system, or they can't make sense of these symptoms they're having, which can be confusing. So referral to one of our centers of excellence can help to resolve that. Other types of discussions that our Aftercare navigators have with people are we also offer mental health, financial assistance, help with utilities, help with housing. We finally offer a community through the body politic, because this is what my patients tell me all the time, is that what they're experiencing frightens them. And for a lot of people, it's human nature to want to be around other people that are going through something similar. So the Body Politic is a community support group and organization that enables people to come together. So the Aftercare program, we started off by reaching out. We sent hundreds of thousands of texts and phone calls to former cases or people that formerly had COVID, with a focus on our task force on racial inclusion and equity neighborhoods. Then we spoke with those people, and we actually reached more than 230,000 of them. And then we made connections with them for whatever the resources that they needed were. And again, it varied person to person. Some people needed medical care, some people needed financial support. Right now, the status of Aftercare is it's still very active. We're still reaching out to people, and you can, again, call 212 COVID-19 to speak with a resource navigator, or actually rather an Aftercare navigator today. So one of the things that we want to make sure we have a focus on is that we have enough Aftercare navigators based on the amount of the need that we're seeing in our communities for long COVID. We're in a great position now, but that's something that we want to have a key focus on in terms of making sure that we have the future resources in place to take care of people with COVID.
How many navigators are there, and in your opinion, how many do we need to meet the current need?
Yeah, so I would say we need as many navigators as we need to be able to pick up the phone when people call us and to be able to make outbound phone calls. Right now, you can try yourself. Somebody will pick up the phone almost immediately when you call 212 COVID-19, and there's a press off for one of our aftercare navigators. We have hundreds through three organizations, 2 community-based organizations, Bronx Works and the Chinese American Planning Council. So, this is something we keep a key focus on, but right now, we're definitely able to meet the need that we're seeing. And our goal is to make sure that we're proactively giving every New Yorker that's had COVID and that has these symptoms, which can be scary, a place to go and a place to get answers and a place to feel support. Our centers of excellence, I'll be very brief. These are clinical centers that we've opened 3 of them over the last 1 to 2 years. You asked about cost. We spent $140 million constructing these 3 centers of excellence. But the important part there is that we did 6 years of constructing these state-of-the-art medical facilities, 6 years worth of work in 6 months. Because we can't wait 6 years to take care of New Yorkers with long COVID. We have to take care of them now. So we were able to accomplish that, which is no small feat. Now we're accepting patients. We've completed more than 20,000 visits across my 3 centers of excellence. And when you come in, you have a holistic evaluation for you and your family about what's going on with you, your symptoms of long COVID. And we have on-site care for some of the more common things like an on-site pulmonologist that could do pulmonary function tests, or a cardiologist with on-site echocardiography for patients, as you mentioned earlier, that studies show are more likely to have consequences of COVID like that. And happy to go into any more detail that would be helpful.
Yeah, you mentioned the $140 million for the COVID Centers of Excellence. What's the budget for the aftercare program?
So the budget for the aftercare program is funded by OMB, and right now we're receiving the funding we need for, again, the hundreds of aftercare navigators that we have through the 3 organizations that we work with. I defer to OMB to share more specifics about numbers.
Okay, great. I hear you describe the aftercare program, the center, and so I guess my question also is, like, in your opinion, right, there's this infrastructure that is laid out presumably to tackle this very real health epidemic that we're experiencing. Do you find that our current public health policy, like taking away mask mandates, stopping test and trace, and all these different things are counterproductive and kind of undercut the ability for this great infrastructure to have the kind of impact it needs to, or to achieve the goal that this infrastructure ultimately has?
I'll answer maybe the second part, and I'll turn to Celia to answer the first part about some of the other public health measures like masks. I'm one of the things that makes me proud to be a New Yorker every day is I remain your executive director of the New York City Test and Treat Corps. We're stronger than we've ever been, and we have units now that can go around into our communities 75% of the time in our task force on racial inclusion and equity neighborhoods. We offer you testing. If you test positive, speak to a clinician, get Paxlovid, you walk away with it within 20 minutes. That's the type of thing that we want to do a lot more of in New York City, to meet people where they are, so that we can be able to treat New Yorkers with the tools that we have in our tool belt now. So Test and Treat is, I just wanted to say, very much still here for New York City, and we'll continue to support New York City as long as COVID is a threat to any New Yorker.
Yeah, and thank you. Chair Caban, you mentioned in your opening remarks that COVID is still here. It's still impacting New Yorkers on a daily basis. And to that end, the health department is still recommending a lot of preventive measures to help prevent people from becoming infected and to prevent severe illness and the consequences of that. So we are still recommending that people wear masks in indoor settings. We definitely are encouraging people to be up to date on their vaccinations, and with a new bivalent vaccine available just in the past few weeks, which is recommended for everyone 12 and older. We're doing a lot of community outreach through our public health corps, through all of our work with providers to make sure that people know that they should be getting this vaccine. We have a new media campaign released for that just starting this week. And so I think all of these preventive measures are things that we're hoping to work with New Yorkers to make a part of their daily lives.
And does the health department have recommendations around hybrid work, right? Like, I mean, out of all of the things that we know are unknown about long COVID, we do know that the best way to prevent long COVID is to not contract COVID. Again, for city workers, for example, we're seeing like a real push to that folks must be in person. Is there a recommendation or a guidance around being able to work remotely?
I think we've seen that people being vaccinated and following the preventive recommendations that I've already outlined is effective at reducing transmission.
And so you don't have a recommendation around hybrid work policies or whether that would reduce the likelihood of contracting COVID and therefore long COVID?
We're still recommending that people wear masks in indoor settings. We recommend that people stay up to date on all of their vaccinations, and we're doing a lot of work to help people do that this fall.
Okay. And you also mentioned in your testimony around, I know that you hit on the hundreds of thousands of text messages that were sent out and some of the patient resources and things like that. You talked about some of the material supports in terms of what sounded like financial assistance, I'm assuming like low barrier grants. How much has been set aside for that? How much has been spent up to this point? What's the process to access it?
I can speak from the perspective of aftercare, and then I'll turn to Celia to see if she wants to add anything. So the way that we access financial resources is we use our aftercare navigators to navigate. And a lot of the resources that people need already exist, but people don't necessarily know how to get them. An example that comes to mind often for me is the healthcare system is, for Dr. Quinn and me, we really get it. We know how to get almost anything in the healthcare system, but I don't take for granted that my patients don't have the same understanding I do of how to navigate our healthcare system, the same way that I don't know how to navigate our financial systems as well as our aftercare navigators do, who are specifically trained to help people to get the resources that they need. So things, again, like rent assistance, like utilities assistance, a lot of these are programs that already exist in New York City, but our job is to make it so that we are able to bring all of these things to light to people, whether it's healthcare you need or rental assistance. One of the reason we created aftercare is we didn't want to let any New Yorker suffer in silence at home without knowing that there was a place they could go for whatever support that they would need. And that's really been our mantra and why aftercare is so important to us.
So correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of the financial assistance and other supports that you laid out in your testimony, that is already existing infrastructure, correct? Like just kind of being another sort of pass-off point to sort of what we do in our constituent services offices, right? So my question becomes, and I talked about this in my opening testimony, about the economic impact of long COVID and people not being able to go to work as a result. The programs that we currently offer as a city, do they take into account long COVID as a disability, right? Like what is the process there to make sure that, we're feeding people into this infrastructure, but is it up to date with the moment in time that we are in? Because when I listened to the testimony, what it sounded like to me was like, oh, this sounds like specific, again, low barrier grants for people experiencing long COVID that are in acute crisis and need some level of stabilization to stay in their homes, to put food on their table. But that's not really what I'm hearing. So I'm also curious about if there are numbers and tracking of how many long COVID patients are accessing and getting the financial assistance that they need in whatever area it is.
Yeah, so, I can't speak to all the different city-wide programs that are available for people with a wide variety of needs. I think what your opening remarks raised is that because of long COVID, there are people experiencing these needs. I think the H&H Aftercare program has an excellent record of bringing people, connecting them by calling a simple phone number, 212-COVID-19, to get them access to a wide variety of supports that they might need as part of the COVID care that they need. And
is there a data set available? Are there numbers that you can provide us with?
So for the aftercare program, we do publish data that we put on our website. So you can go to our Test and Treat website, which is one of the, I learned this recently, there's a difference between a website and a web page. A web page on the Health and Hospitals website. And that has the data that we collect about the types of things people use from the aftercare program, from the conversations. If you look at that and want to learn more, definitely send us an email.
And that includes, and I'm sorry because I can't pull it up right now, but that in terms of that includes people who go through the aftercare system, and it would say like this many people got housing relief, this many people got money for their utilities or whatever. Is that the kind of data that is available, publicly available on the site?
We break it up into more general buckets, but for example, I can tell you that some of the more common things that we're able to help people with in terms of, so just to back up for a second, we've been able to complete referrals, or in other words, to complete the connection to resources for more than 30,000 New Yorkers to date. So more than 30,000 New Yorkers, we've been able to connect to resources, whether it's HRA, whether it's a center of excellence for medical care, whether it's the body politic for community support. For some examples, and then if you go to our website and take a look, happy to talk more about it afterwards. But of things that are more common is HRA is one of the more common things that people request. Utilities assistance is fairly common too. The most common is our centers of excellence, which I think makes sense because a lot of the symptoms that constitute the condition we refer to as long COVID are frankly scary for people. And a lot of the people that we're seeing, I see new patients like this myself, are people that are engaging with our healthcare system now because they have a new symptom like hair loss that they're terrified by. They don't know what it means. And in New York City, we connect them to me as a doctor. In other cities, we don't have analogous programs like this, but I'm really proud that we do this proactive outreach and we have a clear place for people that are suffering from symptoms of long COVID or need financial support or just need to be part of a community support group. We give them a good, clear option in New York City just by calling 212 COVID-19.
Great, thank you. Just a simple but big question. Are the funding for these programs sufficient given the current state of the pandemic and the number of New Yorkers suffering from long COVID? And also connected to that, how do you anticipate the 7.75% budget cuts over the next 4 years that the mayor is requiring of DOHMH will affect the budgets and staffing?
So I'll start. So, I don't have specific budget numbers to share today, but the work that the health department is doing and that's currently funded encompasses a lot of different types of COVID-19 work, including the ongoing surveillance work around long COVID that will help us understand not only who is currently impacted or might become impacted by long COVID, but I think that will also help us understand what is the right level of utilization for the types of programs that H&H, for example, is using and how to help design for those needs going forward. We would never turn down additional funding to do more work.
I'd like for you all to have more funding. And then finally, has there been any interest in creating a citywide task force on long COVID?
So currently, and I hope this is reflected in our testimony here today, that there's a lot of collaboration between the health department and H&H, as well as multiple other city, state, and federal partners on this topic right now. We're frequently in conversations about new findings as different scientific findings emerge. And I mentioned in the testimony that earlier this summer we held a symposium for both patients and providers about long COVID with health and hospitals that would really designed to help providers understand how to recognize this, how to provide compassionate, appropriate care, and how to refer people for additional, specialized care when they need it. So those are the kinds of collaborations that we're, currently engaged in and expect to continue.
And if I could just build on the symposium, to me, the most powerful thing in the world is a patient story. Nothing is more powerful than what my patients tell me every time I see them in clinic, and nothing is more powerful to me than hearing what patients have had to go through, or those that are suffering in silence that haven't been able to see a doctor yet. We led off the symposium, and there's a public link for it, so you can view all of it later on. But it was led off, as it always should be, with patient stories about patients that have long COVID now and what they've gone through, and what they need. And that's the right way to think about it. So, the way that we're coming at this is the symposium really informed, how we need to refine and keep our focus on long COVID. But it started with the stories of patients, and that always needs to be our focus.
Thank you. And I'm going to pass it to Chair Moya.
Thank you, Chair Kaban. Just a couple of questions. Thank you both for your testimony here today. I want to go back to a couple of things that we've kind of discussed in the past, but relevant to the topic of today's hearing. Are the language barriers preventing the non-English speakers from reporting the long COVID symptoms and causing underreporting for long COVID in immigrant communities?
So the figures that I mentioned from the health department's community health survey, just I'll give a little bit more detail about that survey so people can understand how we get that information. So this is an annual survey that the health department conducts, and it provides pretty robust data on the health of New Yorkers by neighborhood, by borough, and also citywide, and provides estimates on a broad range of chronic diseases and also behavioral health risk factors that really help us to plan for public health interventions, but also many of our partners to help plan for interventions as well. So it's a cross-sectional survey, and there are approximately 10,000 people who participate. It's all adults age 18 and older from all 5 boroughs of New York City. These surveys are conducted by web, by phone, and pencil and paper, depending on what people need. And the survey is conducted in English, Spanish, Russian, Chinese, both Mandarin and Cantonese, Bengali, and Haitian Creole. So then these are the data that we're analyzing to understand, and people can visit our website to get information about the annual results of the community health survey. It can be found on the EpiQuery section of our website.
Thank you. And have there been any impact seen on fertility after COVID infections or with those suffering from long COVID?
So I'm not familiar with specific studies related to that. There may be some studies out there that address that issue. I expect that it's a little too early to know fully what the extent of the impact would be.
Okay. And does poverty in communities of color really create a deficit in long COVID treatment, similar to what caused the high mortality in those communities in the early days of the pandemic?
So I think, access to care and access to resources needed for people to engage in healthcare it's a very big problem, and it's certainly something that has relevance to this conversation about long COVID. On the sort of epidemiology and assessment side, I think there's a lot of national studies going on, as well as our own health department's efforts to do surveillance for this condition here in New York City. I think some of those issues that you're raising around access to care will make it difficult for us to really understand what the impact is, but those are things that I know on the health department side, we're working with academic partners to understand how to better study.
And if I could just add on there too, in terms of how we look at different communities. So we centered our 3, as you know, centers of excellence. We made the decision about where to put them based on where people were disproportionately impacted by COVID. And then moving forward after that, one of the things about aftercare that's so important to me as a primary care doctor is this is a proactive way to reach out to people. We reached out to people in our task force in racial inclusion and equity neighborhoods. We knew how to reach them because we reached 89% of every single case in New York City through contact tracing up until Omicron. We reached you before 9 out of 10 times. We can reach you again now to see how you're doing. And that gave us the ability to connect with people that often were suffering in silence at home, were confused by frightening symptoms, didn't know how to access the support that they may have already qualified for. So we wanted to be able to solve all of that, and that really is the backbone of the aftercare program in terms of why it's so important to our city.
Right. And does the hesitancy to receiving the vaccine in the past through communities of color that were just redolently very, very skeptical of taking that, has that had any impact on receiving treatment for long COVID?
This vaccine hesitancy is such a complex issue, one that we're continually working on in a variety of different ways. I think the health department's public health corps has been very much engaged in a lot of communities of color across all of the tree neighborhoods within New York City and elsewhere to work on issues of vaccine hesitancy. We're also training these same community health workers to understand how to connect people to care for treatment of acute COVID, and also to recognize when to seek care for long COVID.
Got it. Do you feel that the general population has a good understanding of the potential risk of COVID? And could we do more to inform COVID patients and those at risk of COVID about the risks of long-term COVID as well? I'm just trying to see, do you have a sense that they're getting
I think this is the work of public health, is to continually communicate to people about what their current risks are, especially as our understanding of what those risks are evolve. Like with long COVID, there is still a lot to be learned. I think there's certainly enough that we know to, that preventing long COVID is one reason to avoid being infected with COVID, using those prevention measures that I've already described. So this is not something that we're seeing that we will stop doing. I think this is really the work of the health department to continue to educate people and help them understand how to avoid those health risks.
And I would just add on to that, we're stronger together. So if we all, everybody in this room, could know and tell 5 other people, call 212-COVID-19 if you have symptoms that are scary to you, if you don't know what's going on, you had COVID in the past, the city will be a healthier place.
Great. And then just going to be my last question, but what has been the economic impact of women taking off from work due to long COVID, since they seem to be impacted at a higher rate?
I don't have information about that, although I think it's a very important question.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to turn it now over to Chair Caban.
Thank you. And I just have a couple more questions for you. The first being, you talked again a little bit about outreach, education, especially for New Yorkers, patients, right? But can you talk specifically about what H&H is doing to ensure that providers receive adequate training that's grounded in several decades of expertise on post-viral chronic disease research and care, right? Including on how to manage 3 of the most common poorly understood yet treatable conditions arising from long COVID: ME, mast cell activation syndrome, so MCAS, and then, forgive me, but dysautonomia? Help me out.
You did great.
Thank you. I appreciate
Say
that.
it 5 times.
But yeah, I mean, specifically, I want to hear more about, what are we doing to ensure that healthcare professionals receive that adequate training on identifying and providing care for people with long COVID and infection-associated chronic illness?
I would love to start, but as I start, I'm going to immediately point to Dr. Quinn and say this is a collaborative effort. How we train both our clinicians, but how Dr. Quinn trains the clinicians across New York City is something that we do together. We meet together regularly about what clinicians both in our system and outside of our system need in order to take the best care of people. I'll give 2 examples of what we do in our system, and then I'll turn to Dr. Quinn. One is that we have ways of bringing together our clinicians through usual leadership conferences, and that's a way that we are able to put out the most recent evidence, because the evidence does change. One of the things that we see with our clinicians is the desire to see, as other symptoms or other facets of long COVID are being discovered in the evidence, how can we inform them about it? How can we send them the most recent article on X, Y, or Z? So we have regular ongoing trainings for our clinicians in our system, but then also we built into our electronic medical record Epic a special type of note that goes through, just in case you forget something, all of what we know about long COVID, so that when you're having the discussion with the patients, you see on the computer screen the reminder of exactly what to ask about. We update that regularly as we learn more from the evidence as well.
Thanks. And those are some really great examples of the kinds of best practices that we try to help all of the healthcare systems put into place. The health department has a number of ways to reach out to providers and educate them. In addition to the symposium that we did in June, we also sent out a Dear Colleague letter that describes, many of the high-level topics that were covered in the symposium, but also really reflects the health department's perspective on how important it is for physicians to listen, to take seriously complaints that might seem strange or not fit certain patterns, to help people connect to the types of treatment or resources that they need to manage their symptoms when they are experiencing them. So those Dear Colleague letters go out to tens of thousands of providers within New York City, and we have many ways of reaching them.
And then my final question is related to this, but to complement that, what is H&H doing or plan to do to help address implicit biases in healthcare professionals? So, just to name a few, right? Like women, Black women, particularly non-binary people, trans folks, gender non-conforming folks, and other queer folks that have historically gotten, the short end of the stick when it comes to care.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say that outright because at H&H, it's woven into the fabric of everything we do. We provide gender-affirming care at H&H. We have 6 Pride centers. At Metropolitan Hospital, we do gender-affirming surgery. So, for us, it's woven into the fabric of everything that we do. We have specific trainings on implicit bias, but more than the trainings, it's just part of how we deliver care. Everything we do is focused on equity and focused on being gender-affirming of all of our patients, and that's why H&H is such a special place.
Yeah, thanks. I was also going to jump in to add that this is such a core part of what the health department, how we see our role in supporting providers to put these into practice. And to that end, I just wanted to highlight our LGBTQ plus Bill of Rights that the health department developed and that we use to promote across all of our work. And that includes our efforts with neighborhood health action centers, with our public health corps, with providers in New York City.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking our questions. And also thank you in advance for being responsive to our follow-ups.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. And again, thank you for putting a spotlight on this incredibly important issue.
Yes, agreed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So this finishes the administration portion of the hearing. We'll now be moving to public testimony. Please just give us one moment. But I will read the names of the panelists for the first panel for public testimony. It will be Dr. Purpura, Namrata Pradhan, and I apologize in advance for any mispronunciations, Tatiana Bajar, Lisa Bernstein, Kenya Williams, and Elizabeth Martin. Thank you to the administration, and it will be just one moment. We're just going to give people that were named time to come up to the table. This will be a hybrid panel, so half in person and half remote. Okay, I'm going to read the names. And apologies, my name is Brenda McKinney. I'm a senior committee counsel or senior legislative counsel at the New York City Council. I work on the Committee on Women and Gender Equity. I'm going to read the names of the members of this panel one more time, and we'll go in order. So panelists will be muted that are testifying remotely until it's your turn, and then a box will pop up for you to click on. The order of this panel will be Dr. Purpura, Namrata Pradhan, and Adhikar, Tatiana Bajar, Lisa Bernstein, Kenya Williams, and Elizabeth Martin, with the final 2 panelists in person. So at this point, we are ready to begin testimony. So we will move to our first public panelist, which is Dr. Purpura. You may begin your testimony when the sergeant calls the clock, and you are on a 3-minute clock. Thank you.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, City Council members. Thank you for your time and efforts today regarding this very important matter that impacts tens of thousands of New Yorkers. I'm speaking to you today as a long COVID clinician, researcher, and also a family member of someone severely impacted by long COVID and who remains on medical disability to this day, who was also diagnosed with long COVID more than a year after I started my own clinical and research work on the topic. I'm an assistant professor of medicine and infectious diseases at Columbia University Medical Center, where I lead efforts in the Division of Infectious Diseases regarding long COVID. I've also participated as a panelist in the New York State and New York City symposiums on long COVID as a clinical and research expert. My professional experience with post-viral syndrome far predates COVID and started during my time working with Ebola survivors in West Africa and Liberia as an epidemiologist at the CDC. I saw firsthand the impact of post-Ebola syndrome, which is strikingly similar to what we now know as long COVID in many ways. When COVID hit New York in March of 2020, I replicated the post-Ebola syndrome work I was doing in West Africa to create a longitudinal research study at Columbia. We detected signals in our data by the summer of 2020 of neurologic long COVID, and we've expanded our efforts to include more comprehensive and targeted surveys for long COVID specific symptoms, and are collaborating with several labs across the country to perform advanced laboratory testing to help identify what exactly is causing long COVID. To date, we've recruited over 500 participants, and more than half are endorsing severe long COVID. Our collaborators range from labs at Columbia, other academic centers across the nation, private biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies, as well as the New York City Department of Health. In addition to my research efforts, I personally provide clinical care to more than 50 patients with severe symptoms in my infectious diseases clinic. I also work with various subspecialties across Columbia. My patients present with a variety of types of long COVID, ranging from chronic fatigue syndrome, brain fog, dysautonomia, mast cell activation syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, ringing in the ears, peripheral neuropathy, as well as severe pulmonary and cardiac long COVID. Unfortunately, many of my patients have had to take time off of work, and I frequently assist with writing letters of medical necessity for unemployment and disability claims. I kindly urge the council to continue to listen to the voices of long COVID patients, advocates, clinicians, and researchers, as long COVID is clearly a public health concern that requires assistance for many and also resources at the city level to provide better care for New Yorkers. Thank you.
Okay, and just an update, because the first witness, Dr. Purpura, thank you, has to leave at 3 o'clock. The chairs are going to ask questions of the first witness, then we'll return to the rest of the panel and save questions for the end of the panel.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you for being with us. Really, really appreciate your testimony here today. A couple of questions for you. I think, doctors who aren't well versed in post-viral illness may find that the normal battery of tests that they run on patients don't turn up results outside of acceptable parameters, leading them to believe that the symptoms are all in their patients' heads. Are there tests that you run that do show abnormal levels of physiological indicators?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it really highlights one very important topic regarding clinical care with long COVID is that we have to listen to our patients and not necessarily just rely on laboratory testing, despite that goes against a lot of how modern medicine is practiced. And I think we're learning how to respond to many of these more silent diseases through long COVID. So specifically regarding what tests we order, so as a subspecialist, I have access to more advanced testing than probably would typically be done by the more frontline primary care providers. So by the time patients see me, they've already had routine screening, looking for things that we would definitely want to rule out, like diabetes, vitamin deficiencies, and other chronic illnesses. So for my assessment, we do more advanced immunologic testing. So I am screening for autoimmune diseases, as well as getting a better sense of the functioning of the immune system. But these tests can be more expensive, but give as an infectious disease specialist, we can provide better justification for performing these tests. And I will say that although rare, I have diagnosed several patients with autoimmune conditions that I believe have been worsened by COVID. So I think a subset of patients are experiencing an unmasking of autoimmunity. We're also seeing that some patients are having just generalized immune dysfunction, and we can pick up signals in laboratory testing such as cytokine panels. And this is also being reflected in a lot of the basic science studies that have been coming out over the past few months that have defined hypotheses for different mechanisms of long COVID, including dysfunction of T cells, as well as autoantibodies. So in general, yes, there are more advanced testing that we can do. And I think one thing that we need to consider is how to offer these type of testings to patients who are either uninsured or may not be available to them at the time.
And based on your work, your experience, in your view, do you think that employers should grant long COVID patients reasonable accommodations?
Absolutely. I think one important thing to highlight with long COVID is that there really is not one type of long COVID. I look at long COVID as many different Venn diagrams with a lot of overlap across the various types of symptoms. And these range from, as I mentioned before, from heart to the lungs, to the brain, to the peripheral nerves. And they can all present with unique types of disability, unfortunately. For example, with patients with severe cognitive dysfunction, it's very important when managing chronic fatigue syndrome and brain fog that patients have the ability to limit their exertion. So we call this pacing, and it's one of the tenets of treating chronic fatigue syndrome. And if employers aren't allowing patients to have this type of time to limit themselves so they don't cause relapses or worsening of their symptoms, it can be detrimental to them. Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes to jobs that require more physical exertion. And if patients are having chronic shortness of breath or have chronic cardiac conditions or even weakness due to peripheral neuropathy, employers definitely need to take this into consideration. And again, as I mentioned, I write a lot of these letters, and I think it is a very important consideration.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask you two quick last questions. I know that you are under a time constraint, so again, I'm deeply grateful that you're here with us today. But, what can DOHMH and H&H do in order to ensure that providers are well educated about long COVID? And then, in your experience with working with patients, what supports and resources do they need that they aren't currently getting?
That's a fantastic question. I'm very happy that both the state and the city have taken much more initiative in the past 12 months. I think both the symposiums are excellent examples of that. I was also assisting with the Dear Colleague letter that was described earlier. I think all of these efforts are wonderful, and they need to target every level of the medical and public health system. So as of now, it still feels like a lot of long COVID care is coming out of the academic centers and falling on to subspecialists. And unfortunately, the wait time to see many of us is 2 to 3 months, if not longer. So I think in terms of how we can immediately improve access to care, it would typically mean providing better education to healthcare providers at all levels. And I think taking it out of the subspecialties and putting it into primary care would be an excellent first step. So I think the Dear Colleague letter was a first initiative that was done, but I think clearly there can be a lot more done to provide education to all the providers across the city. So I think that's an initial step that would be very beneficial. And just in terms of providing care to patients, something that I'm trying to work on is how do we provide resources and education prior to when a patient can actually be seen by a healthcare provider? And even if it takes several weeks to see a provider, there are things that we recommend at our first visits that do not necessarily require an in-person visit or even a phone call. A lot of it can be done through dissemination of information through either online resources or pamphlets. And I think having access by giving people who may have concern for long COVID, these type of resources, they could start to educate themselves and already make lifestyle and dietary changes that could immediately impact them. So I think overall there needs to be more of an impetus towards doing things to immediately provide information and care to patients. And this could be both at the patient level, but also at the provider and public health level.
Thank you.
Chair Moya, you don't have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to our next panelist. Thank you, Doctor. And we'll continue with this panel. Just one moment, please. All right, so our next witness will be Namrata Pradhan Adhikar. You may begin your testimony when the sergeant calls the clock.
Starting time.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm here, Namrata Pradhan. I'm organizer for Adhikar. So our worker leader, Rukmani, is testifying today.
Hi, namaste. Namaste, everyone. My name is Rukmani Bhatai. I'm an active member of the Adhikar, and a leader, a lead trainer for the We Rise Nanny training and have been working as a domestic worker in NYC since 2017. And I'm speaking on behalf of the 100,000 of the domestic workers in New York City and 1,800 other Nepali-speaking domestic worker member of the Adhikar. And in the year 2020, during the pandemic, I lost my job and I did not have any income source, and it impacted my mental health and my physical health. I did not have any medication in my apartment and was unable to get the medication and would cry in pain. This situation went on for the several months. I did not have option as the doctor's office was open then. When I Googled myself and found out that it was a frozen shoulder, I started doing the exercise and somehow finally found some relief. When I felt a little better, then I started looking for a job, but it was so hard. I interviewed at the 16, 17 different places, but nowhere did they offer what I knew was the minimum wage and my basic right as a domestic worker in New York City. I also experienced a lot of discrimination during this process, which made the experience much harder. This struggle added my mental, emotional, and physical pain, and it made me so sad to know that as domestic worker, we were forced to have to accept jobs that did not provide our basic right just because we needed a job. This is not only my story. This is the painful story of the thousands of the domestic worker sisters. However, we call essential worker, but we never get the benefit of the essential worker as the other essential workers. Today, I'm testifying of the Committee on Women and Gender Equity and COVID-19 subcommittee to support domestic worker and employer empowerment initiative. We need this initiative to build out our service, education, and leadership development for other domestic workers like me. And we need to ensure that employers are being educated to understand and follow their responsibilities.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony.
We will vote for them.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We'll now move to the two live witnesses. Oh, apologies. The next witness will be Lisa Bernstein. If you're ready to testify, you may begin when the sergeant calls the clock.
Okay, thank you.
Starting time.
Hello, my name is Lisa Bernstein, and I'm honored to be here as a member of Hand in Hand, the Domestic Employers Network, a national network of employers of nannies, house cleaners, home attendants, and family caregivers that works with domestic worker organizations to transform the care sector to one that is fair and equitable. Hand in Hand is a member of the Coalition for Domestic Work, along with the National Domestic Workers Alliance, Adhikar, and Carroll Gardens Association. Since the day my daughter was born 27 years ago, I have employed domestic workers. In fact, without Glendora and Philippa, the amazing nannies who cared for my children, or Carmina, who now cares for my mother-in-law, I am not exaggerating. Without these women, I would not have been able to do my work or support my family in New York City for the last 27 years. But of course, all of us, especially mothers, know that caregiving is at the very heart and soul of our lives, our humanity, and our economy. Every day, it is the caregivers who are the true essential workers of New York. During the first year of COVID, my mother-in-law's Alzheimer's symptoms worsened, and she needed round-the-clock care. I wanted to know how I could do the right thing, and with COVID, the safe thing, for our family, for my mother-in-law, and of course, for her new caregiver. But not surprisingly, these essential workers were and still are forgotten at the federal, state, and New York City level. There was no guidance or support for employers of domestic workers. Once again, our systems, our culture, and our city forgot to value the work that is most valuable. It was a wake-up call for me, and it's why I joined Hand in Hand, the Domestic Employers Network. The domestic workers of New York City were desperate when COVID locked the city down. Many of them lost their jobs. They had no safety net and no protection, and they didn't even receive simple recognition of the truly essential nature of their work. Some employers who worked from home fired their nanny or housekeeper with no notice. Others made insane demands. But just as many employers paid whatever they could to keep their family and their employees' families safe during early COVID, understanding that the salary they paid was keeping another family fed. Domestic work cannot be done remotely. It is often emotional as well as physical work. Domestic workers wake up every morning to provide care to others, yet cannot stay home to care for themselves or their families, no matter how sick they may feel. Many cannot afford to take the time off needed to recover from COVID, and so, ironically, they are then very much at risk for long COVID. The ability to rest, recover, and still be able to eat and pay the rent. This is the very definition of a social determinant of health. COVID and long COVID continue, so please don't once again forget domestic workers. Employers who want to do the right thing need the city's leadership on the continuing COVID and long COVID crisis. This is just one of the reasons why I proudly support the Domestic Worker and Employment Empowerment Council initiative. Sorry.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. And just a reminder that we accept, the council accepts written testimony up to 72 hours after the start of the hearing. You can email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov. That written testimony does not have a limit. So please feel free to contact staff if you have any questions and email written testimony. We'll now move to the next witness on this panel. There are two more witnesses. The next witness is in person, Kenya Williams from the New York City Coalition for Domestic Work.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair and Council members on the committee, for offering me time to speak this afternoon. My name is Kenya Williams. I'm a domestic worker and a member of Carroll Gardens Associations. We, along with the National Domestic Workers Alliance, Attica, and Hand in Hand, comprise the NYC Coalition for Domestic Work. Together, we represent 30,000 domestic workers and employees across NYC. I'm here this afternoon to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on domestic workers like myself. When the pandemic started over 2 years ago now, I was working in a building in Brooklyn. A nonprofit organization came into the building, donating face masks and gloves to the tenants in this building. I proceeded to ask if I could have a few boxes of the masks and gloves for my nonprofit organization, which I am a member of the Carroll Gardens Nannies Association. I was told no, because they're only giving it out to essential workers. The building that I worked in had many tenants, but not even half of them were essential workers, but yet they qualified to receive this package and not me. And then the shutdown happened. I realized as a domestic worker, I didn't qualify for a lot of things that were being put into place. We as domestic workers was left out of the equation, yet it was essential for us to show up for work every day so others could go to work and continue working at home while we cared for their children. So I'm standing in front of you today asking you to help me prove that we are essential workers and we must be included in your equation. Our coalition launched a domestic workers and employee initiative, a council initiative for FY23 that will provide much needed funding to support outreach, education, and enforcement support to domestic workers across NYC. We hope you vote for our initiative that is on the agenda for next week's General Council meeting. Thank you for your time, and Chair and committee members. We look forward to working with you to build a city where domestic workers are valued and dignified. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. The last person on this panel will be Elizabeth Martin, who is also testifying in person. You may begin. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth. I live in Brooklyn and work as a product manager at Salesforce. I'm here to voice my experience living with long COVID following an initial infection that began on February 29th of 2020. I would like to begin by giving you a sense of what my life was like prior to COVID. Prior to getting COVID, I traveled to 19 countries across 5 continents. I organized multi-day and multi-week bike trips. I volunteered for nonprofits in the Dominican Republic and at the U.S.-Mexico border. Closer to home, I taught software development to New York City high schoolers out of the Salesforce office after work. I lifted weights, did Pilates, took hip-hop classes, biked, ran, went hiking, danced Cuban salsa. Contrast that to today. Today, I'm unable to walk for 15 minutes at a time without worrying about the potential negative repercussions. I limit my walking to 8 or 9 minutes between any 2 points. If a distance is 10 minutes or longer, I will ride an electric scooter, which was purchased specifically for this purpose, or take an Uber or a Lyft. That should start to give you an idea of the physical limitations that I now have. Since getting COVID, I've been diagnosed with dysautonomia and myalgic encephalomyelitis, or chronic fatigue syndrome. I spent an inordinate amount of time managing my diet, supplements, medical appointments, and place extreme limits on how much energy I extend, both physically and mentally, just to maintain a very fragile baseline. Going beyond these limits, which are far lower than any able-bodied person might expect, can result in sleep apnea, neuropathy, fibromyalgia-like pain, headaches, brain fog, and debilitating fatigue. There are individuals I know personally who've pushed themselves beyond these limits and are now bedbound as a result. There are 2 reasons I'm still able to work full-time. The first is that my job is 100% remote and extremely flexible. My team is supportive, and I can take a break whenever I need to. The second is the full and unwavering support of my husband, who does the vast majority of our cooking, cleaning, shopping, and taking care of our dog in order to reduce the burden on myself. Without these 2 lines of support, despite a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Columbia University and a master's in management science from Stanford, I can very easily imagine myself on the verge of homelessness. When I applied to extend my part-time disability beyond 6 months, it was denied. I went back to work full-time before I felt ready, and honestly believe that there's a possibility I might have recovered by now if I had been able to take an extended leave. Since getting COVID, I've seen over 3 dozen specialists. Many of them do not accept insurance. Many of them are out of network. After what is covered by insurance, my healthcare-related expenses exceed thousands of dollars annually. There are no areas of policy I'm aware of under the City Council's jurisdiction which affect me personally. I only hope to share my experience in case it might help others. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for your testimony and for sharing your lived experience. It's deeply appreciated. I also want to share my mother is a retired domestic worker who also struggles with chronic illness. So deeply personal to me as well. I do have a follow-up. I know, Ms. Williams, you mentioned legislation that you'd like to see the council support. But for any of the other folks on the panel, what are, based on your experiences, what you're finding as your needs as directly impacted folks or members of organizations that are doing advocacy on this front? What would you like to see New York City Council do to support people living with long COVID?
We would like support in educating domestic workers as well as the employees so that they know we need to work together. We feel if the employees knows, it could help them put things into place just in case we do get sick and we need the disability, that the funding is there for us to do these things so we can recover, because we truly are essential workers, because we have to show up so the essential workers can go to work. So we should be in that category as well.
Absolutely, thank you. Right. Oh, and I think Ms. Bernstein has their hand up, and then we'll come back over here.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, I'd gotten cut off, but the Domestic Worker and Employee Empowerment Council initiative that's on the agenda for next week's General Council meeting for funding for educational programs for fiscal year 2023. I hope people will vote on that because a lot of that is about building educational information about the needs of domestic workers with and for domestic employers. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And if anyone else on this panel, apologies, just to flag, if you use the raise hand function in Zoom, if you'd like to speak, just because we have to unmute.
Go ahead.
I don't have any specific areas of policy that would impact myself, as I mentioned, that I'm aware of. But I worry most about members of our community who don't have the resources to come and testify today, members who may not be aware of the resources that were discussed earlier. I'm a member of the body politic community that he mentioned. I've probably seen every post in the New York City community since the summer of 2020. I've never seen anything about financial support for New York City residents, so I don't know how individuals are getting that information. I also hope that the City Council is aware of the requirements for disability that people with long COVID have and disability protection and maintaining income continuity and stability so they don't have to leave their places of residence. In addition to that, I've seen reports of individuals who were required to go into the office who worked for the city specifically. I don't know if that's still happening, but I know that that would be a detriment to myself if I had to do so with this illness.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know, certainly, I think it was at a recent hearing we had on retaining municipal workers in the city and continue to be critical of the current administration's position on demanding full in-person work for basically all folks. So to hear that loud and clear, and definitely would like to be a partner in that work. Thank you again, all of you, for your testimony and also for answering my questions.
Thank you so much. This concludes panel 1. We'll now be moving to panel 2. I'll read the names of all of the panelists in order, and then we'll call you. The public panel 2 is Dr. Petrino, Ed Young, J.D. Davis, Kimberly Smith, Juan Pinzon, and May Smith. So again, public panel 2 is Dr. Petrino, Ed Young, J.D. Davis, Kimberly Smith, Juan Pinzon, and May Smith. Okay, so we're now ready for public panel 2. Dr. Petrino, if you're ready to testify, you may begin when the sergeant calls the clock.
Starting time.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Petrino. I'm the Director of Rehabilitation Innovation for the Mount Sinai Health System. My team has been working with long COVID patients since May of 2020, when we first noticed that about 15% of the thousands of New Yorkers that we were monitoring acutely for COVID started to develop chronic symptoms. As we've started to care for thousands of people with long COVID, we've begun to publish findings in peer-reviewed journals about the common presentations of long COVID and symptom severity associated with long COVID. There's a few things that I want to share with you on that. The first is that around 70% of our cohort are female who experience significant symptom worsening associated with hormonal cycling. And so this is definitely a condition that significantly and disproportionately disables women. And that is something that we should be aware of. 50% of our patients who come to our clinic have experienced a change in their employment status as a result of the severity of their long COVID symptoms. 30% of that group are now unemployed as a result of their long COVID symptoms. And then finally, over 60% of our patients were experiencing measurable cognitive impairment on a scale that we call the neurological quality of life that we typically use to measure cognitive impairment in people with traumatic brain injury and stroke. So highly significant cognitive impairment. So that is what we've noticed in the past. As we move forward into our current research and work and the gaps that we see in the New York State, I would say that one of the major problems that we see is that many long COVID clinics across the state are still turning patients away if they don't have a positive PCR or antibody test. This is against CDC policy and against CDC diagnostic criteria. So we desperately need New York State to enforce CDC policy such that anyone who meets diagnostic criteria can be seen by a long COVID clinic. Otherwise, putting these parameters and blocking people without a PCR test or an antibody test will significantly worsen existing disparities in health for people with long COVID. We also just simply need to set up free clinics for people with long COVID. I will here and now volunteer myself as someone who is willing to educate clinicians who are willing to staff long COVID clinics, free long COVID clinics, because currently free clinics around the city do not have doctors that are well educated in long COVID. So we need that urgently. Similarly, we're seeing that many insurers are denying claims for necessary care. The argument we receive is that necessary care for long COVID is poorly defined. And so we end in this dangerous scenario where insurers actually get to dictate what is necessary care as opposed to clinicians. We should, as a state, be developing policy. Pardon me?
Please do finish your remarks. Thank you.
We need to be developing policy to guide and enforce standards for necessary care, and the same for granting short and long-term disability claims.
Thank you.
Okay.
So just a logistics update, as with the first panel, Dr. Petrino has a time constraint. A number of physicians that are testifying today are also seeing patients. So we're going to take question and answer after several witnesses, but normally still after the panel for most witnesses as well. So Chair Caban?
Yes, so Dr. Petrino, it sounded like you were going to make an additional point before your time expired. And so in recognition of your expertise in the field, I just want to give you an opportunity now to round out your earlier remark. And then I have a follow-up question for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was just going to say that finally, Dr. Akiko Iwasaki and myself, a collaboration between Yale and Mount Sinai, recently published some work showing that we can identify people with long COVID from a control group using blood biomarkers with 96% accuracy. But these are inaccessible blood tests for most physicians, and certainly they are not covered by insurance. So I think that something that we need to work toward as a group is a rapid biotechnology translation pipeline. This is a public health crisis, and we're in the midst of a mass disabling event, which is worsening every single day. New York State has the tools to make a difference in this fight. So I think we just need rapid action to translate some of these scientific findings into actionable treatments and assessments for long COVID. And thank you for the extra time.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, so many things that you said have me kind of a little bit floored, like hearing, for the women you've seen 50% change in employment, and of those 30% experiencing then unemployment. But I want to make sure I got something right, because I want to follow up with the admin on it. Can you touch on this again? You said that in terms of the gaps of the city's infrastructure for providing care and resources for long COVID patients, that turning away people if they're not testing positive on PCR tests. So what is your understanding of the policy? Who's getting turned away and why?
Yes, so thanks for asking for clarity on that. So many long COVID patients, by the time they reach our clinic, they will experience at many long COVID clinics, they're told, we cannot see you as a long COVID patient unless you have a documented medical history of acute COVID infection, such as a positive PCR test or a positive antibody test in your medical history. That is a medical confirmation of COVID. Now, what I find frustrating about that is that our CDC diagnostic criteria for long COVID does not require objective medical documentation of an acute COVID infection. Simply the suspicion of an acute COVID infection based on symptoms that a patient experienced prior to developing long COVID symptoms. To state that more plainly, if you got sick with flu-like symptoms and then went on to develop long COVID symptoms, that should be enough for a physician to say, this sounds a lot like long COVID, we're going to give you a long COVID diagnosis. And that's not me saying that, that's the CDC and their guidelines.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the doctor? Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Doctor. We will now move to Ed
Thank you.
Young, the next witness on this panel. You may begin when the sergeant calls the clock.
Starting time.
Thank you. I am a staff writer at The Atlantic, and I've been reporting on the COVID pandemic since almost its beginning. I first reported on long COVID in June 2020, when the official word was that COVID would either be severe enough to land people in an ICU or so mild that people would recover within weeks. But even then, that wasn't true. Countless people were already stuck in the space between death and recovery, racked with debilitating and persistent symptoms that waxed and waned erratically and that affected seemingly every organ system in the body. 2 years on, long COVID is more widely known, largely due to the efforts of long haulers themselves, but several aspects of the condition are as frustratingly true now as they were then. First, while some people gradually get better, others do not. Some of the people I interviewed more than 900 days ago are still sick. Second, COVID long haulers are disproportionately women, as you have already heard. Third, almost all of them have experienced some form of societal dismissal. They've been told by friends, family members, employers, colleagues, and worst of all by doctors and healthcare workers, that their debilitating symptoms are in their heads or simply the result of anxiety or depression. People have been given diagnoses as ridiculous as earwax buildup or middle age. And fourth, their symptoms are very real. Consider the effect of just brain fog, one of the most common symptoms. This is specifically a problem with executive function, the set of mental abilities that includes focusing attention, blocking out distractions, and holding information in mind. These skills are so foundational that when they crumble, much of a person's cognitive edifice also collapses. Anything involving concentration, multitasking, and planning, which is basically almost everything important that we do, becomes absurdly arduous. Many people with brain fog struggle to drive, to read, to buy food or make meals. Memory takes a hit, and people lose connections to their pasts and to their identities. In these traits, long COVID has much in common with other complex chronic illnesses, including but not limited to fibromyalgia, dysautonomia, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, myalgic encephalomyelitis, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome or ME/CFS. These illnesses travel in packs. They overlap significantly in their symptoms, and many cases of long COVID are effectively ME/CFS by another name. They disproportionately affect women. And because they disproportionately affect women, they are tragically neglected. Little money is spent on studying them. The NIH spends less on ME/CFS every year than any other disease in its portfolio relative to societal burden. Few medical schools teach these illnesses, so few doctors learn about them. And since the medical profession has a long history of labeling women as emotional or hysterical and psychologizing their pain, when people with these illnesses seek medical care, they are often dismissed or gaslit. On average, it takes a woman with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome 16 years to get a diagnosis. A man needs only 4. As my dear friend, author, and ME/CFS advocate Sarah Ramey wrote in her memoir, The Lady's Handbook for Her Mysterious Illness, the illness itself is horrible and ravaging, but being told you've made it up over and over again is by far the worst of it. I have now written 5 stories about long COVID and sister illnesses like ME/CFS, with a 6th to be published next week. Every single time, I get hundreds of messages from people who either have these conditions or care for those who do. I wish I could even begin to convey to you the cumulative anguish in these messages. Many say that these pieces mark the first time that they've had the merest flicker of validation and acceptance. I want those of you with the privilege of good health to really contemplate what that means, what it would be like to have your life contract to an unrecognizable shell while those you turn to for care and support tell you that nothing is wrong. I want you to think about living through that state of misunderstood pain for months, years, decades, or perhaps an entire lifetime. I want you to amplify that image millions of times over and sit with the collective weight of all of those disrupted careers, disintegrated dreams, and lost joys. This is a medical crisis and a moral travesty, one that long precedes COVID, but has been greatly exacerbated by it. Women make up the majority of the essential workforce that America relied upon throughout the pandemic. Many of them, especially immigrants and people of color, worked in jobs that significantly exposed them to infection. Nurses, grocery workers, nursing home staff, many more. As the sociologist Jessica Calarco once said, other countries have social safety nets, the US has women. And in return for their labor, much of the country then turned its back on those who were disabled by infection. This surely cannot stand. We need more research into long COVID, ME/CFS, and their related illnesses. More doctors need to learn about these conditions, especially from the few clinicians who actually understand how to diagnose and treat them. Many are still prescribing potentially harmful treatments like exercise therapy, which are unsuitable for people whose illnesses can become substantially worse with even mild exertion. Long haulers also need social support, since many can no longer work. But for all their medical woes, the long COVID community is neither passive nor powerless. Over the last 2 years, I've seen long haulers, again, mostly women, push the world's mighty health organizations, the WHO, the NIH, the CDC, and many more, to officially recognize their illness. I've seen groups like the Patient-Led Research Collaborative study long COVID at times when few others would. I've seen advocates for diseases like ME/CFS reach out to new long haulers in solidarity and support, despite the physical cost to them of doing so. Their efforts have been and continue to be remarkable and heroic. But we should not tolerate a world in which some of the sickest people who have a condition that saps their energy are left alone to fight for their own rights. We should ask less of them and more of ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. In fact, it was so thorough that the questions I anticipated asking you, you have already covered. But thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for your continued reporting on this, and thank you for the care and thoughtfulness with which you are taking in and carrying other people's stories. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Take care.
We'll now move to the next member of the panel. Mr. J.D. Davids, you may begin your testimony when ready.
Starting time.
Thank you. I'm J.D. Davids. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm the co-founder of the Network for Long COVID Justice, a project with strategies for high impact. As a transgender person living with long COVID, I'll focus my remarks on the pressing need for long COVID information, diagnosis, care, treatment, and support for trans people who are among the most affected by long COVID, as well as those most marginalized from economic stability and access to care and public programs. I wish to give particular emphasis on the need to center Black, Brown, and Indigenous trans people who often face highest rates of discrimination, bias, and health challenges. I also recognize the powerful life-affirming networks of trans people in our own communities, including those in Black and Brown communities anchored by transgender women, femmes, and non-binary people. Rather than consigning us to a you do you individualist rat race where trans people often lose, or giving resources to primarily LGB groups that lack accountability to trans people, I urge you to recognize that we do us and resource trans people and our groups for the work we have always done to care for one another. Long COVID is a trans issue. This year, what we long suspected was confirmed in the Household Pulse study, a national study summarized by LGBTQ media outlet Them as the Census Bureau survey revealed that trans and bisexual adults are much more likely to report having the disease. Compared to 5% of cisgender men and 9% of cisgender women, 15% of trans adults in the US say they are currently experiencing long COVID symptoms. Those rates mirror broader health disparities experienced by the trans and bisexual communities and point to disconcerting ways our healthcare systems may be failing them. Transgender people, including trans undocumented immigrants and sex workers whose lives are explicitly criminalized, experience high rates of systemic bias and violence, including in healthcare settings. I invite you to imagine facing all you have already heard today of the anguish and horrors of long COVID laid upon a life of ongoing trauma, violence, and marginalization. Trans people, especially Black, Brown, Indigenous trans people, are also likely to have comorbidities that increase risk of both COVID-19 harms as well as long COVID. In the 2019 study on HIV prevalence among transgender women in 7 US cities, 42% of women interviewed were living with HIV, which includes 62% of the Black African American women and 35% of Latino women. Not only that, people living with HIV are 4 times as likely to have long COVID than those who are HIV negative. With limited time, I've written 3 recommendations in my written testimony, but I will stress the first one. Train and employ trans people as long COVID focused community health workers, doulas, and home health aides to educate, support, and care for trans people and others with long COVID in New York City. Many trans people, including immigrants and sex workers, were left out of the stimulus or locked out of state excluded worker funds that did not reach enough of those in need. Trans people often can lack a network of family support that can sustain others in a crisis and may face lack of understanding or outright bias from non-trans support systems. We need a dedicated trans-led, trans-accountable community education process to help our community learn about long COVID, get diagnosis, and get the support and treatment we need. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next witness will be Kimberly Smith from Callan Lord. You may begin your testimony when the sergeant calls the clock.
Starting time.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Chairs Caban and Moya, for the opportunity to testify this afternoon. I am Kimberly Smith. I am from Callan Lord Community Health Center, this afternoon I'm going to be delivering testimony on behalf of my colleague, Elsbeth Survey, who is a family nurse practitioner at Callan Lord for 5 years and has been involved in healthcare for 13 years. In my experience as a primary care provider at Callan Lord Community Health Center, a federally qualified health center whose mission is to serve New York's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender communities, I have seen the negative impact of COVID-19 and long COVID on many of the most vulnerable members of society firsthand. Some of my patients were not even aware that they were entitled to paid sick leave throughout the pandemic, and I had to educate them on New York City law. Several of those diagnosed with long COVID have dropped out of the workforce due to ongoing health concerns. Many were unaware of the option to apply for disability before leaving the workforce, which complicated their application process for benefits later on. Even for the patients who are savvy enough to apply for disability, the documentation requirements are cumbersome and time-sensitive for patients and providers alike. Referrals to specialty long COVID clinics often involve lengthy wait times, and treatment options are often limited. For those with symptoms that are hard to quantify, such as psychiatric symptoms, chronic fatigue, brain fog, claims are likely to be denied, and they questioned extensively by insurers. Insurers have also denied claims for long COVID disability based on the lack of documentation of a positive COVID-19 test, at an issue when many rely on at-home rapid testing. Staffing shortages at our clinic have also made it harder to process claims with the narrow timeframes available. Case managers with detailed knowledge of navigating the complexities of benefit programs have been working at reduced capacity and are often only available remotely. This makes it harder for patients with limited bureaucratic literacy to get support with form completion, and I must support my patients with this process instead. This includes telling them where to write their names and sign forms. The 17 minutes I am allotted for primary care visits is insufficient for this, and time spent on form completion could be better utilized educating them on symptom management. I believe in an educational outreach campaign on the symptoms of long COVID, a sustained and increased educational campaign, the availability of paid sick leave, and the process for applying for disability, either through employer or through the state, would have a great impact on many New Yorkers suffering from this condition. Targeted outreach campaigns designed to reach those with non-traditional employment, low literacy, non-English speakers, women, sexual and gender identity minority patients would help those most disenfranchised and least likely to be aware of the options available to them. Programs that offer support in applying for disability for those affected by COVID-19 and long COVID would have a significant impact. Expanding disability or offering provisions for supporting those who, due to illness, require support with unpaid work, like caregiving and parenting, would also be useful in creating a more just and healthy New York City. I want to thank you again for this opportunity. We will submit a slightly lengthier version of this comments for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. The next witness will be Juan Pinzon. You may begin your testimony when the sergeant calls the clock.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify, Chair Caban and Chair Moya. My name is Juan Pinzon. I'm the Director of Government Relations at the Community Service Society of New York. CSS health programs help approximately 130,000 New Yorkers access healthcare coverage and care every year. We do this through a life answer helpline and in partnership with over 50 community-based organizations throughout the city and state. Today, I would like to talk about the challenges experienced by clients when accessing and paying for care related to long COVID. Many of our long COVID clients come through the New York City Managed Care Consumer Assistance Program, also known as MACAP, which is a consumer assistance program that helps people resolve health insurance problems and access care, especially for those who are uninsured. Long COVID exposes patients to high costs, both financially and in terms of the effort required to manage issues such as prior authorizations, insurance denials, and confusing medical bills. These barriers disproportionately affect women because of the likelihood of long-term COVID-19 complications associated with gender. And as we have heard from our panelists today, women also experience greater economic and social stressors during the pandemic, which is contributing to a disproportionate mental health burden. During the pandemic, MACAP has provided much-needed advocacy assistance to these patients who have struggled to secure coverage, care, and social services. We have served over 8,000 people, most of whom are women, people of color, and speak a foreign language. The program operates through a hub and spokes model in which CSS acts as the hub with a free helpline and technical assistance role, while 12 CBOs serve as the spokes, providing in-person services in 15 languages at multiple locations across all 5 boroughs. MACAP's community-based approach means that clients receive culturally and linguistically competent services that can make a big difference as to where they receive the care that they need. For example, we recently helped an 80-year-old woman experiencing long-term respiratory and mental health complications as a result of COVID. Through the South Asian Council for Social Services, and MACAP CBO, we have helped this client get her COVID vaccine and booster shots, organize care at rehab facilities, and connect her to providers who understand her physical and mental health struggles. New York City's residents need programs like MACAP more than ever because navigating health insurance is only getting more difficult. And when you add on top of that the complexity of the health and economic issues created by long COVID, this creates even more challenges for patients. Thank you for the opportunity to submit this testimony today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just a quick update, we will now go to May Smith, but there will be one more panelist on this panel, Dr. Anthony Komaroff. So we'll go to May Smith and then Dr. Komaroff to conclude the panel. So May Smith, you may begin your testimony when the sergeant calls the clock. Thank you.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for hosting this important hearing. I'm submitting a more detailed version of this testimony in written form, but today I want to tell you a bit about my experience as a city worker with long COVID. Several months after my initial quote-unquote mild case of COVID in April 2020, my health descended rapidly. Even after the smallest physical exertion, my body and mind were completely wrecked. If I was in a Zoom meeting for more than 20 minutes, I couldn't focus anymore. My brain just stopped working. I couldn't think clearly, I couldn't exercise, I could hardly walk upstairs. If I tried to push myself even a little bit, I wound up in bed for days with a migraine, fever, and complete exhaustion. My body was completely different. I didn't recognize the body I was living in anymore. I knew this wasn't normal fatigue or stress. For my entire adult life, I had held multiple jobs at a time, volunteered, had a regular fitness routine, and an active social calendar. Now, after preparing a simple meal or taking a shower, I needed to rest in a dark room. It was the last thing I wanted to do, but I knew I wasn't well enough to work anymore. I told my boss I'd need to take a month off while I figured out what was wrong. 1 month turned into 2, 3, 5, and finally 8. I passed my days on the phone between doctors and insurance companies, spending precious energy I didn't have, followed by hours or even days to recover. Desperately trying to get decent care had become a full-time job, unpaid and agonizing. Then, through the patient support group, Body Politic, I learned that there was only a tiny number of physicians in the greater New York area who specialize in ME/CFS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, and other post-viral illnesses like long COVID. I called one of the main ones, Dr. Susan Levine, and was lucky to get in. I believe she now has a waitlist nearly a year long, so the vast majority of other long COVID patients are not so fortunate. Having treated post-viral illness for decades, she knew what to look for. She ran comprehensive blood tests that other doctors never knew to. She quickly put me on medications for reactivated EBV Epstein-Barr virus, sent me to a cardiologist who specializes in dysautonomia, a neurologist who specializes in neuropathy, and put me on medications to help with neuroinflammation and blood clotting, all things very common in long COVID patients, but which the vast majority of patients still don't have access to treatment for. I slowly got a bit better over the course of the next year and a half. I'm still nowhere near my pre-COVID self. My heart rate skyrockets when I'm upright. I still get headaches and extreme fatigue if I do too much activity, physical or mental. So I need to carefully pace myself and limit what I do. I tried to sound the alarm at the city agency
Time
that I
expired.
work for.
Go ahead and you can finish your remarks.
Thank you. I tried to sound the alarm at the city agency I work for, warning what would happen if we continued dismantling public health protections. It's out of our control was always the response. It's up to the mayor. And Mayor Adams wanted people back in offices. Protecting city workers and New Yorkers didn't factor into his plan at all. It still doesn't. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. We'll now move to the final witness on this panel. Dr. Komaroff, you may begin your testimony when ready. Thank you.
Thank
Starting
you.
time.
Can you enable share screen?
We can see and hear you, Doctor.
Okay. Can you see slides? Hello?
Unfortunately, Doctor, I don't think that we have the ability to do that now.
I see. Well, I'll just
But Doctor,
tell
you
what's on
can
this.
you can submit them along with your written testimony.
Good, that's what I'll do.
We'll send information that will be posted on the website as well. Apologies. Thank you.
Very good. My name is Anthony Komaroff. Thank you very much for having me testify today. For about 45 years, I've been studying the problems, the chronic illnesses that follow after many kinds of infectious illnesses, very much like what happens following COVID. I wanted to make a few points today. First, these post-COVID illnesses are likely to cause a very large financial burden to society and to governments. The condition called long COVID in particular, which is one of the post-COVID illnesses, has been found to have multiple underlying abnormalities in the body. It is not imaginary. There's now robust scientific research that shows that. There's a very large research effort underway at both NIH and CDC to understand these abnormalities better and hopefully to develop effective treatments based on the abnormalities. After COVID, there are a lot of things that go wrong. For one thing, there are increased rates of several major illnesses. For example, in the year following COVID, the rates of heart attacks, lung failure, diabetes, and early death increased by 150 to 400%. These are new illnesses in people who never had these illnesses before. Second, there are new kinds of injuries to the heart, lungs, brain, kidneys that are being caused by COVID. And then last, there is the condition called long COVID, which also has underlying biological abnormalities and which several of you have described so clearly, there's no point in my repeating that. There are major economic implications from this. I'm now going to give you the summary of several recent reports, one from the Brookings Institution, one from the Centers for Disease Control, one from the National Bureau of Economic Research, and finally an analysis done by two very well-known economists, David Cutler and Larry Summers. They estimate there are now than 16 million adults in the US who have post-COVID illnesses, and that about 2 to 4 million of them are out of work because of those illnesses. That's nearly 2% of the total civilian labor force. The annual cost of foregone wages in this group is $170 to $230 billion per year. The annual cost of medical care and lost quality of life is $544 billion a year. And the aggregate cost to the United States over 5 years is estimated to be $3.7 trillion. Who gets long COVID? It can be more likely to occur in people who were sickest when they first got COVID. However, it can occur even in people with the mildest initial COVID illness. The risk is greater in women and also in older adults, people with chronic illnesses, and people who are in underserved communities. What's going on in the body in these patients? In the brain, the autonomic nervous system that controls heartbeat, breathing, lots of essential bodily functions is malfunctioning. The small nerves of the body are disordered. They have a neuropathy. There is evidence of inflammation in the brain, the death of brain cells, and reduced brain size. There are autoimmune disease manifestations, particularly a variety of antibodies against parts of our own our biology, not against foreign invaders. There is immune cell activation and exhaustion. In the heart and blood vessels, there are abnormalities that cause the blood vessels to form clots more easily and to go into spasm more easily, both of which raise the risk of heart attacks and strokes. And there's reduced ability to exercise. And finally, energy metabolism, the ability of the cells of the body to make energy molecules, is impaired. What's being done to reduce the burden of these chronic post-COVID illnesses? As I said, there's a lot of research underway, the main purpose of which is to understand the underlying biology, to find biomarkers that can serve as diagnostic tests for long COVID, and to find targets for new drugs that may be effective. There's also research on prevention, primarily on vaccines, trying to find vaccines that produce durable, long-term protection.
Excuse me,
with
doctor?
One shot and a nasal spray. Yes.
You could just wrap up. We just have some panelists after you that have some time constraints.
Sure.
Thank you.
And there are trials underway of various drugs. So in summary, we have a problem with very large burden of suffering and very large economic implications that all governments, unfortunately, are going to have to grapple with. Thanks very much for your time.
No, thank you so much, Doctor. Particularly in a gap or an area that we have not heard enough about is certainly the economic impacts. And so would encourage you, please do submit written testimony, including those slides that you were hoping to present. We would really, really love to have them and benefit from learning more from your expertise. So thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Apologies. This concludes the second panel.
Oh, I just want to say thank you to the folks who testified, and particularly thank you to, is it JD? JD Davids, Kimberly Smith, Juan Pinzon, and May Smith, and especially for all of the recommendations that were made, particularly by JD Davids and Kimberly Smith. We're going to take those into advisement and ask the administration about those things. So thank you again.
And before I read the names of panelists for panel 3, just a reminder that we also have an email that you can also submit written testimony up to 72 hours after the start of the hearing. The email address to submit written testimony is testimony@council.nyc.gov. And Doctor, for example, if you have your slides, one of our staff members is reaching out about those slides and submitting, but staff is also available to answer any questions. So now I will read public panel 3 and the panelists' names in order. We'll be calling you one by one, but panel 3 will be Gabriel Emeterio. And Gabriel is testifying on behalf of themselves and then 2 other individuals who are testifying anonymously, also reading Dr. Levine's testimony into the record in person. And so we will be using separate 3-minute clocks for that. Then we will move to Teresa Russo, Myra Batchelder, and Rachel Robles on this panel.
Right. And my apologies, but very, very quickly, I am going to run out for a super quick bio break. We'll be right back when we get the next panel set up.
So we'll start moving to the table for panel 3 and take a short recess. Thank you so much. Just one moment.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move to public panel 3. The first witness on this panel is Gabriel San Emeterio. You may begin testimony when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Sanemeterio, and I am a New York City resident and the co-founder of Strategies for High Impact and its network for long COVID justice. I'm an LGBTQIA+ genderqueer femme, Latina immigrant, living with myalgic encephalomyelitis, or MECFS, which was worsened by a recent COVID infection, which became inevitable due to the abandonment of mitigation measures such as masking in indoor spaces and public transport. And by the way, I took Paxlovid and experienced a severe rebound. Everyone who gets COVID is at risk for developing long COVID, and more than half of the people with long COVID meet the diagnostic criteria for MECFS. Many of them are homebound and severely disabled. Therefore, it is a privilege to be here as a member of the communities most affected by this crisis. Long COVID affects women and transgender people at higher rates than any other segments of the population. Hispanic adults are also more affected by long COVID than any other ethnic groups. I'm here in solidarity with all immigrants, particularly those who are undocumented, many of them women and femmes fleeing gendered violence and whose long COVID symptoms are overlooked and trivialized and whose stories we never get to hear. I have experienced the dismissal of my disabling symptoms by a multitude of doctors and specialists. MECFS took away my ability to work, but I was denied disability benefits many times. After losing everything, I was eligible to receive public assistance because I am HIV positive. $376 a month in cash assistance, food stamps, Medicaid, and rent assistance provided by HASA, the HIV/AIDS Services Administration, saved my life. These resources are not available to people with an MECFS and or long COVID diagnosis. Ironically, I recently lost my benefits because I had the audacity to work 20 hours a week. The pandemic, the income thresholds for public assistance are very low, and they expect people to survive with under $400 a month in New York City. Let me be clear, I was able to re-enter the workforce because the pandemic made it possible for me to work from home. Working remotely is not a luxury, it is a necessity that should be protected by law and available to all New Yorkers living with long COVID and other disabilities. Despite being in insurance limbo at the moment, I know that I can get culturally appropriate and gender-affirming care at one of NYC's H&H Pride centers, and that I can get my HIV medication through the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, ADAP. Living with HIV has shown me the abysmal difference in care systems and support that exist for people living with HIV, while there is nothing for people living with MECFS and little is being done for people with long COVID. I call on the New York City Council, the Department of Health, and other city agencies to use existing programs created to address the HIV crisis as a model to provide housing, health insurance, prescription coverage, and other supports and services to people living with long COVID.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then can you please begin with you have two individuals that are reading anonymous testimony, or the witness is also reading anonymous testimony for those individuals.
Yes.
So we'll now move to anonymous individual 1 with the 3-minute clock. So you may begin testimony when ready. Thank you.
Okay, this is anonymous testimony 1. I am reading the following testimony on behalf of a fellow advocate, a 30-something cis straight white woman from New York City who wishes to remain anonymous due to the stigma surrounding long COVID and impact it could have on her career. This is her testimony. My gender has played a huge role in my long COVID story. Given the time constraints, I'd like to share only a few examples. First, I was infected with COVID in March 2020 while picking up my non-essential and thus undeliverable birth control at a nearby chain pharmacy. Perhaps my life would be different if I had risked an unintended pregnancy. Second, before I developed long COVID symptoms, like many mothers of young children, I was sleep deprived. A recent study has shown that poor sleep prior to COVID infection increases the chance of long COVID by up to 3.5 times. I expect I am not the only parent whose accumulated sleep deficit impacted their illness. Third, I pushed through my acute COVID symptoms due in large part to family caregiving responsibilities. I spent the days following my 3 days of flu-like symptoms juggling full-time remote work and full-time childcare rather than resting. Fourth, I also pushed through my early long COVID symptoms due to medical gaslighting. My primary care provider, despite repeatedly hearing my frightening symptoms, only provided a psychiatry referral for anxiety and a basic blood work order. Fifth, I was only recently diagnosed with many lifelong illnesses that are common in women, like hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and POTS. That pre-COVID doctors misdiagnosed as functional neurological disorder, once known as conversion disorder or hysteria. If more clinical education was provided regarding these underdiagnosed illnesses, I would have received appropriate medical attention prior to COVID. That would have lessened the impact of COVID. Sixth, I'm overpaying for inadequate treatments for these lifelong illnesses because these conditions historically and primarily affect women and are thus grossly underfunded and studied. Last, I still have no idea if any of my reproductive decisions were correct in relation to long COVID. No doctor has confidently told me what the effect of breastfeeding with long COVID could have on my child or what effect pregnancy would have on me. This lack of information is especially galling given the large number of long haulers who are of childbearing age and capacity. We deserve informed post-viral medical care of care free of sexist medical gaslighting, relief from applicable caregiving responsibilities, and research into the specific interplay between reproduction and post-viral illnesses so that we can make informed decisions. And all long haulers deserve recognition, good medical care, job accommodation, supportive services, and financial support. I ask the Council to help us in any way it can. Our lives and futures, as well as those of our families and communities, depend on it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to Anonymous Witness 2.
Okay, Anonymous Witness 2. I am a third-generation New Yorker, New York City resident, mother of elementary school-aged children, and a dedicated public servant in New York City service for well over a decade. I am here to voice my experience living with long COVID and to call on City Council and Department of Mental Health and other city agencies to better meet the needs of many New Yorkers struggling with long COVID and the complex chronic conditions and disabilities it creates. I also call on these agencies to immediately adopt flexible work options, including telework, to better support those like myself. Outdated, inflexible work policies inflict an outsized burden on women, disabled, caregivers, and people of color, but flexible work can alleviate this impact on individuals who are disproportionately leaving the workforce. A flexible work option would increase diversity and inclusion in the city workforce, increase employee productivity, promote employee retention, and maintain competitiveness and equity with other government entities and the private sector. As a municipal employee, I returned full-time to my physical office at the mandate of the administration and, despite being vaccinated, contracted COVID-19 in January of 2022 during the extreme surge at my workplace and throughout New York City. I immediately saw how the mandatory return to office and lax implementation of COVID protocols contributed directly to the surge and on the ability to deliver necessary service to New Yorkers. As a working parent, contracting COVID-19 had an immediate impact on my job and my family. Despite being sick with debilitating headaches, chills, nausea, dizziness, fever, blurry vision, brain fog, and extreme body aches, I had to take care of my minor children and continue to try and work from home. As a member of a workplace with severe attrition, my inability to work had a crippling effect on New Yorkers. Contracting COVID-19 upon my return to my physical workplace forever changed the trajectory of my life. To this day, my health has not returned. I am not the healthy person I once was. To compound the issues surrounding my deteriorating health, despite the assurance of flexibility for caregivers and those with disabilities, the administration has taken a hard stance on a full return to physical offices without flexible options. Mayor Adams said in his primary campaign, COVID has shown that we do not all need to be at a desk in an office building to be productive. This is why I will encourage more flexible work options and remote work across the city so that caregivers can continue to care for their families while maintaining employment. Unfortunately, those of us caregivers facing long-haul COVID, this promise has not become a reality, and we are faced with the hard choice of caring for our health, our children, and leaving the municipal workforce. Months of treatment and long-haul COVID-19 doctors cannot undo the harm caused to my body by this virus. It is only with continued treatments and extreme care that there could be a hope in the horizon, but my future is unclear. As I ask for advocacy and resources for those like myself, debilitated public servants, caregivers, and lifelong New Yorkers who need help. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to give you a beat to to take a breath, to drink a little bit of water, because I know you've
Thank
just
you.
done several testimonies in a row, and you've got another one to
And
go.
this time limit is kind of ableist, I had to say, and difficult for people who speak English as a second language, like me. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Take a beat. Take your time.
Yeah. Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, I have Dr. Susan Levine's
Okay.
testimony here. So this is from Dr. Susan Levine. I am pleased to have been involved in the care of chronic fatigue syndrome (ME/CFS) patients for over 3 decades of my career, and now, as a natural extension of my familiarity with this disease, I have begun evaluating long-hauler patients. I completed my fellowship in infectious disease and allergy and immunology in the late 80s, and afterwards began seeing patients in private practice. Thereafter, I became involved in some clinical studies that helped build the case definitions that we use, such as the Canadian case definition for ME/CFS, which lays out the necessary clinical criteria to make this diagnosis. Over the years, it became clear that there were certain comorbid disorders that accompanied ME/CFS, including orthostatic intolerance, mast cell activation syndrome, gastric dysmotility, and fibromyalgia. Neuropathy and disorders for the spine, i.e. craniocervical instability, are also being recognized as other diseases that are among ME/CFS. ME/CFS patients have been marginalized for many decades, and they have suffered for it. Just now, some primary care physicians, mainly at medical centers in urban areas, are learning to recognize this complex disorder, but few have learned to treat it. Recognizing and acknowledging the suffering of patients afflicted with ME/CFS and invisible illness is so critical to moving forward with treatment. There are far too few doctors who not only can recognize the cardinal symptoms of the disease, but few specialists, such as cardiologists, who can diagnose the orthostatic related problems, the gastrointestinal complications, and the neurological sequelae of this illness. My hope is that with the advent of long COVID and untold sequelae of this devastating viral illness, that doctors, other healthcare professionals, family, employers, and disability companies, including the federal government, can recognize the devastating effects of this illness, which in so many ways resemble the natural history of ME/CFS. Not only do we need more healthcare professionals taking care of patients in the trenches, but we need vast federal funding and private donors to support much needed research this disease craves. It is clear from the results of mine and my collaborators' research at Columbia's Mailman School of Public Health, led by Drs. Lipkin and Horning, in addition to other clinical collaborators across the country, that there are a myriad of immune, metabolic, proteomic, and microbiome abnormalities in ME/CFS patients. We can capitalize on these findings to develop new treatments and fast-track them instead of waiting years for the FDA to approve them. Other strategies for helping to treat ME/CFS and long-haul COVID sufferers include trying trying low-risk interventions, including medication, supplements, and other treatment modalities, including acupuncture and some supplements with mitochondrial enhancing effects that would be considered off-label. For instance, several ongoing studies in long-haul COVID feature the use of metformin and atorvastatin, glucose-lowering and lipid-reducing drugs, respectively, for their anti-inflammatory benefits. It is time that we stood up for ME/CFS patients and for long COVID holders, as their needs have been ignored for far too long. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you again for your willingness and the labor of reading multiple testimonies here today.
Absolutely.
Deeply, deeply grateful.
Thank you for having this hearing.
Thank you so much. And as a reminder, we will check for any witnesses that we've missed today online or registered at the end of this hearing. But you can also submit written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov. We'll now move to the next witness on this panel. We have several witnesses left: Therese Russo, Myra Batchelder, and Rachel Robles. Apologies again for any pronunciation issues. The next witness is Therese or Teresa Russo. You may begin your testimony when the sergeant calls the clock.
Has begun.
My name is Therese Russo, and I'm a long COVID advocate with the National Network for Long COVID Justice New York and the New York State chapter leader for ME Action, a global network of advocates that fights for health equity for people living with myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS. My career background is in health policy and advocacy. Every day, I'm in community with people whose lives have been deeply impacted, if not devastated, by complex chronic diseases like those now developing from long COVID. Overwhelmingly, these new community members are now experiencing what I experienced when trying to seek treatment first years ago. Puzzlement or dismissal by the doctors that are supposed to care for them, marginalization by government and insurance programs that are supposed to protect and then support those who are most vulnerable, and sometimes even rejection by families who do not understand why we can't just get out of bed and get back to work. I am here to testify, as others have, that there is a second pandemic happening on New York City's watch. A pandemic of chronic disease and disability that is following in the wake of infection and reinfection from SARS-CoV-2. As Councilmember Caban stated, we are in the middle of a mass disabling event, and we need New York City and its public health, healthcare, and social service institutions to respond boldly and urgently to this crisis. Long COVID encompasses multiple symptoms and conditions that follow infection, but the group my advocacy efforts focus on are those experiencing debilitating symptoms for months and years after infection, and who are developing conditions like the one I have had for 14 years, ME/CFS. As Dr. Levine's testimony just stated, ME/CFS is a disabling chronic neuroimmune condition that often follows a viral infection. 75% of us are not able to work, and 25% are homebound or bedridden. Only 5% recover. Its hallmark is post-exertional malaise, an exacerbation of some or all of an individual's symptoms that follow physical or cognitive exertion and leads to a reduction in functional ability. Multiple studies have reported that people with ME/CFS are more functionally impaired and have poor quality of life than those with multiple sclerosis, congestive heart failure, stroke, and end-stage renal disease. ME/CFS is often comorbid with autonomic nervous system dysfunction or dysautonomia, another poorly understood set of disorders that can be highly disabling. Multiple recent studies report that nearly half of people with long COVID meet the diagnostic criteria for ME/CFS, and that over half of them experience moderate to severe autonomic dysfunction. So if the CDC estimates that as many as 24 million people are living with long COVID in the US, then about 12 million of those people now also have ME/CFS and or dysautonomia. Over the course of this pandemic, it has been devastating to watch my community grow from 2.5 million nationally to 12 million or more nationally. Is that time for me?
Yes, if you have a final thought you'd like to wrap up, please do.
To wrap up, I'd like to say that earlier this week, activists with MECFS and Long COVID gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest that the pandemic is not, in fact, over, and to demand that Long COVID and ME be declared the public health emergency that it is. In this time period, I met many new community members who joined us after getting Long COVID. I met 30-year-olds who were runners 2 years ago and who are now in power wheelchairs. I met peoples whose voices or lungs were too weak to scream chants, who after 2 hours in the heat had to retire to bed for days, who are still in bed now 4 days later. This is my community. It's growing exponentially, and it's in crisis. So we need the New York City government to track, educate, and take better care of people with Long COVID and associated conditions like MECFS. And my advocacy group would love to discuss in more detail with you what particularly policy and program changes we'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. And we absolutely would love to have those discussions. So let's make sure that we stay in touch.
Thank you for your testimony. The next witness will be Myra Batchelder. Thank you.
Time has begun. Hi, my name is Myra Batchelder, and I live in New York City and work in health policy and advocacy. I'm here to voice my experience with Long COVID and to call on City Council, the Department of Health, and other city agencies to further meet the needs of the many New Yorkers struggling with Long COVID and associated conditions. Thank you for holding this hearing. I got COVID in March 2020, likely at a crowded grocery store in Brooklyn. My symptoms started out mild. I kept working, coughing through Zoom meetings. However, I proceeded to get worse. I was told by several doctors virtually that I likely had COVID, but that I should stay home until my lips turned blue and I couldn't breathe. I was ultimately hospitalized overnight in April 2020, where I was finally given a PCR test and learned that I officially tested positive for COVID. In the weeks and months that followed, I had a wide range of health issues from COVID and Long COVID. I was sent to the ER and also saw a series of doctors and specialists. I faced frustrating gaslighting from some doctors. Debilitating chest pain was one of my worst symptoms for months, along with a very high heart rate. Despite these serious symptoms, a cardiologist I saw told me that my symptoms were likely anxiety and that I should go for a hike. He told me no one had health issues from COVID weeks after they were infected. It felt like blatant sexism and dismissal. I ultimately found better doctors and was treated for pericarditis, POTS, dysautonomia, and other health issues brought on by COVID. But the process took months. As time has gone on, I've continued to face multiple health issues related to Long COVID and see doctors and specialists. I continue to find some doctors are still not very aware of Long COVID and the research. There is a need for more medical education for providers on Long COVID and associated conditions, as well as a need to address gaslighting and biases amongst providers. There is also a need for more public education on Long COVID. I regularly hear from people who are either themselves or have loved ones struggling with health issues after COVID and don't know where to turn. A number have had their doctors dismiss their symptoms. Gaslighting is not acceptable and it can be dangerous. Some patients may have life-threatening health issues after COVID, such as myocarditis, blood clots, and pulmonary embolisms. There is also a need for more research funding, and treatments for those of us with Long COVID and associated conditions, such as POTS, dysautonomia, ME, MCAS, and more. There is also a need to make sure everyone has access to the medical care and treatment they need. Everyone should be able to access needed specialists and care, regardless of their insurance. There is also a need for additional financial and other supports for those that are struggling. This is just my experience. There are hundreds of thousands of people in New York City experiencing Long COVID. There is a need for more community assessment in New York City to better understand what's happening with the Long COVID community and what additional policies and programs can be put in place to help. We need the City Council, the Department of Health, and H&H to take action and put in place additional policies and programs and provide more support to those struggling with Long COVID and associated conditions. We also need the city. We also need the city to take additional actions to prevent more people from getting COVID and Long COVID, as well as from getting reinfected and potentially getting worse. Vaccines are essential, but not enough on their own. We need a multi-pronged approach, including reinstating mask mandates, free N95 masks, improved ventilation and filtration, and more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll now move to the final witness on this panel. This will be the final public witness, although we will check for anybody that we have inadvertently missed. before concluding the hearing. The final witness is Rachel Robles. Rachel Robles, you may begin your testimony when ready, when the sergeant begins the clock.
Time has begun.
Hello, my name is Rachel Robles. I am a New York City resident, a Latino with disabilities, and a member of patient advocacy organizations such as Body Politic and Patient-Led Research Collaborative. I'm here to voice my experience living with long COVID for the past 2.5 years and to call on City Council, DOHMH, and other city agencies to better meet the needs of the many New Yorkers struggling with long COVID and the complex chronic conditions and disabilities it can create. I became ill with COVID-19 in March 2020, just as the pandemic was taking hold in New York City. Hospitals were overflowing, and young people without serious pre-existing conditions were being told to stay at home. I utilized virtual urgent care and received reassurance from doctors that I had been spared from the worst of it. They urged me to sit at home and wait it out. Since then, over 2 years have passed. I'm still waiting it out. 2 months later, I searched for specialists with expertise in infectious diseases and felt defeated after receiving diagnosis after diagnosis of anxiety. Initially, I was given a clinical diagnosis of COVID-19 because I didn't have access to testing. Suddenly, though, the very symptoms that had informed that diagnosis were weaponized against me. On one visit to an infectious disease specialist, I was told, COVID-19 doesn't last for 90 days. You either get over it or you die. This is the grim reality of the long COVID experience, especially for marginalized groups who lack access to quality testing and care. In the months and years following my infection, I have had to advocate against these diagnoses of somatization and for every thoughtful diagnosis I've received, all while dealing with symptoms of brain fog that cause difficulty understanding conversations and confusion about where I am when I walk through my neighborhood. I have worked tirelessly to make my symptoms manageable, but unfortunately I have to endure them incessantly. I developed sensitivity to screens that leads to head pressure, migraines, and tinnitus, which means I have to pace my screen time throughout the day in order to not trigger symptoms. Additionally, my organ dysfunction and damage now makes me immunocompromised. I have to take extreme measures or completely avoid being with others, sometimes prolonging my healthcare and recovery as a result. Since my acute infection, I've been diagnosed with autonomic dysfunction, chronic migraines, acute hepatitis, and even a brain injury. And I've undergone treatments as simple as implementing breathing exercises, all the way to flying across the country to do neurological rehabilitation. While I'm disclosing a very vulnerable and tumultuous journey I've endured, I feel it's important to stress that our stories are not here to elicit pity, nor be an inspiration. They're here to ignite the fire, passion, and anger that are needed to reform the oppressive systems I and many others battle every day. They're not here for your blanket apologies or your praise. They're here for your advocacy, your policies, your congressional actions. In a world that tries to ignore disability,
Time has expired.
You can finish your statement. Go ahead.
In a world that tries to ignore disability, we refuse to be ignored. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. This concludes our fourth and final panel. We'll now check to see if there's anyone that we inadvertently missed. If there's anyone logged into Zoom that we did not call and who registered, if you can please use the raise hand function. We'll wait just one moment. Okay, we have no hands. We're not seeing any hands, and we have heard testimony, we believe, from everyone who has registered. If, again, there are any questions or if you have written testimony, please feel free to reach out to staff, and written testimony can be submitted to testimony@council.nyc.gov. We will now move back to the chair to close the hearing. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody again for their testimony on this really, really critical issue. It is just so abundantly clear that we are facing an enormous crisis and do not have the infrastructure and resources in place to support folks. So we have a lot of work to do. And again, just am deeply grateful for the folks who came here bringing their expertise, their knowledge, their personal experiences to help us, certainly in the City Council, try to devise and implement some plans to address and start to alleviate some of the things that folks are experiencing and acknowledge the fact that it is women, BIPOC folks, queer, trans, and gender nonconforming people who are bearing the brunt of this. So thank you again, and thank you to all of the staff for all of your work in helping make this possible. Yes. This hearing is now adjourned or concluded.